As evening approached, Antonio found himself battling a severe headache. The day had been consumed by endless meetings, important document signings, and preparations for crucial negotiations scheduled later in the week. Exhausted, Antonio opted for silence during his drive home, a departure from his usual music-filled journeys. This silence is quite pleasant, actually, he mused. I should indulge in more relaxing days like this periodically. Upon reaching home, Antonio called out to Kate, the housekeeper, from the doorway. Good evening, Kate. Do we have any painkillers? He inquired. Hello, good night. You're running a little behind schedule today. I'll go get the medications immediately. What's not right? Kate answered in a worried tone. Antonio groaned. Another migraine? That shouldn't be affecting you at such a young age. You're only 33 years old, Kate said, sounding disappointed. For the past 2 years, Kate had been in charge of keeping Antonio's home tidy, despite being 12 years apart. Their connection remained professional but cordial. Kate played the character of the traditional housewife by coming to Antonio's apartment 3 times a week to take care of cleaning, dusting, vacuuming, laundry, and ironing. Antonio, who did not have a wife, came close to marrying Veronica a few years back. When he was 25, he met Veronica, a blonde with green eyes, long legs, and a seductive grin. At the company where he was then the CEO, Antonio lacked experience. Despite his talent and promise, Veronica started as a secretary, and her qualifications guaranteed her a job quickly within the department. Veronica's feelings were highly competitive. At first, Senior Minder, the 45-year-old deputy head, was the frontrunner. He wooed her with lavish presents and planned dates, but Veronica quickly found out he was married and turned him down. Because of her past encounters with dishonest men, Veronica was wary of Senior Minder's claims of an imminent divorce. Then, the young son of the company's principal shareholder, Tono, took the lead. He was Veronica's age, just out of college, handsome, upbeat, and energetic. Nevertheless, Tono detested his job and would do all in his power to avoid it. His wealthy father paid him an excessive income in spite of his son's carelessness, so even though he wasn't very dedicated, he was nonetheless financially secure. Tono appeared to be about to receive a promotion, similar to Senior Minder's efforts to court Veronica with expensive presents, but Veronica was able to stave off Tono's approaches. Seeing through his attractive surface to his immaturity, she knew that she could only really depend on him while his powerful father was close by. Veronica was not intellectually gifted, but she was beautiful and wise in life. Antonio finally had his chance. Even though he was young, he had experience, was attractive, single, and chose to pursue his career based more on intelligence than ties to his family. His future was full of potential. Although Antonio's presents to Veronica were less extravagant than those of his forebears, they nevertheless had a genuine and promising quality. Veronica was enthralled by his tender, passionate, respectful, and loving stare, which had never previously left her. She gave herself up to the depth of his love without any thought. As a result, Veronica and Antonio started dating, which made women envious and male co-workers angry. However, their contentment protected them from criticism from others. They held hands, laughed, and made plans for the future. They pictured themselves as a strong family, complete with twins, a home full of space, and a corgi named Butt. Still, they had to begin with something, if nothing else, an apartment. Antonio, hailing from a humble background, was raised by a single mother after his father's demise when he was 8. Determined to succeed on his own terms and support his mother, he left his hometown for Moscow. His dream of independence extended to providing a home for Veronica. Taking out a mortgage, he purchased a 2-bedroom apartment, investing in their shared future and the possibility of starting a family. Despite its higher cost, Antonio had grand plans in mind, driven by his unwavering ambition and love for Veronica, and he remained steadfast in his goals. The apartment, situated in a building under construction, was slated for completion within a year. During this interim period, Antonio suggested to his fiancée that they live together in a rental apartment to make her more comfortable. Though she agreed, it was evident she wasn't entirely thrilled. To ease her discomfort, Antonio doubled down on his efforts, working tirelessly to hasten their financial stability. His profession as a programmer in a company specializing in cutting-edge technology proved lucrative and promising. As anticipated, Antonio swiftly ascended the career ladder, though at the cost of his energy and time. Over time, late Nights, business trips, and weekend work became routine, much to Veronica's dismay. "Honey, I'm doing this for us, can't you see?" Antonio pleaded, attempting to justify his relentless dedication. "It won't be like this forever. Once I'm established, I'll have more time for you and our future family, but we need to prepare a nest for them. Do you agree?" "I agree," Veronica sighed sadly. Seeing him off to work on yet another Saturday, as time passed, the young couple found themselves spending less and less time together, their encounters growing infrequent. Just before the completion of their apartment, Veronica dropped a bombshell. She was resigning from her job, despite Antonio's protests. Citing their future togetherness, Veronica accepted a more enticing position at another company. "Why do you need this?" Antonio implored. "Stay, and we'll be together all the time. We'll have lunch together, commute together." "Well, it's not like we're doing that now," Veronica retorted. "You leave for work earlier, come home later, and as for lunches, I don't even know if you're eating anything. Your busy schedule leaves no time for meals. Just hold on a little longer," Antonio urged, his determination unwavering. "The apartment will be rented out soon, and my promotion is on the horizon. I've already discussed it with management, and then I won't have to bend over backward to get what I want," Antonio stated optimistically. However, Veronica merely shrugged and walked into another room, seemingly indifferent. A month later, the apartment was indeed rented out, marking a milestone in Antonio and Veronica's journey. Antonio had long harbored the plan to propose to Veronica once he had his own place, and now the moment had arrived. With his last pennies, he purchased an expensive diamond ring and, on the very first evening in their new home, he got down on one knee. "Dearly beloved Veronica," he began, his voice trembling with emotion as he gazed into her eyes, "I love you very much, and I want you to be my wife. The first important step toward building a family. I bought this apartment, and although there's still much work ahead in furnishing it, that's all trivial. The main thing is that we'll be together. I promise to be a faithful and dependable husband, to surround you with love and care. Will you marry me?" Veronica unexpectedly hesitated, shifting uncomfortably and avoiding eye contact. "Well, what are you doing?" "Antonio, get up," she finally said, surprised. Antonio complied. "Why, is something wrong?" he inquired. "It's all a bit old-fashioned and unnecessary, isn't it?" Veronica responded, still hesitating. "Okay, as you wish," she added reluctantly. "Yes, I'm very happy, but let's not rush with the wedding." "Okay, you're right," Antonio agreed, slightly taken aback by her response. "We need to furnish the apartment, buy furniture, settle down, all that stuff. Let's do that, and then we can plan the celebration." All right, this arrangement surprised Antonio. He had assumed that typically women were eager to move things along and set an early wedding date. However, here, Veronica herself asked to postpone the celebration, despite her apparent happiness. "Of course, dear, as you say, the most important thing is that the wedding will happen sooner or later. I love you very much," Antonio reassured Veronica, hugging her. However, she didn't seem very enthusiastic. Antonio didn't pay much attention to it. He had gotten Veronica's consent, and that was the most important thing. However, there was a lot of work ahead. Antonio was determined to furnish the apartment with the best furniture and appliances, which came at a significant cost. Once again, he found himself disappearing into his work, leaving little time for Veronica. "Watch out, or you'll lose the girl, and she's quite spirited," Senior Minder once warned him in the smoking room. "Women love attention, gifts, and outings." "Yes, I understand all that, but the wardrobe and refrigerator won't earn money on their own. Everything will come in due time, gifts and outings, but a little later," Antonio explained. "It's your business, but time may be missed. Just a friendly piece of advice," Senior Minder said, patting Antonio on the shoulder before leaving the room. However, Antonio didn't give much weight to his old friend's words, knowing Senior Minder had pursued Veronica in the past and been rejected. Over time, Antonio began to notice that both he and Veronica were staying late at work. "Vivi, aren't you taking care of yourself? Why are you overworking?" he asked with concern. "Well, you yourself said that we need to furnish the apartment, so I decided to get involved in the process," Veronica replied. "No need, my dear, I can handle it all myself," Antonio insisted, gently kissing her on the shoulder. However, Veronica continued to stay late, adding business trips on weekends to her schedule. She consciously started avoiding unnecessary meetings with Antonio. Soon, Antonio noticed she had acquired a new Latest model phone, where did it come from? He asked. I bought it. I earned my own money. I have the right to, Veronica replied boldly. Of course, you do. I just thought you wanted to help me with buying household appliances, Antonio said, trying to mask his concern. Veronica didn't respond, simply leaving the room in silence. Following the phone, came a golden bracelet and more bottles of perfume on the dressing table in the bedroom. Antonio didn't mind that Veronica was indulging herself, but he couldn't shake off a growing sense of unease. Suspicion crept into Antonio's heart, prompting him to confide in his friend, Daniel. Excuse my bluntness, but I believe she's cheating on you, Daniel said frankly. Antonio was taken aback and apprehensive. Where did you get that idea? He asked, surprised. Daniel pointed out discrepancies, like her purported late nights at work and frequent business trips without tangible improvements to their shared living space. Despite her modest income, she possessed expensive belongings, and her reluctance towards their engagement raised further doubts. Should I investigate? Antonio asked, bewildered. Daniel suggested checking her phone or tracking her whereabouts. That seems intrusive. Antonio hesitated, valuing trust in their relationship. The choice is yours, Daniel shrugged. His words lingered in Antonio's mind, eventually leading him to follow Daniel's advice. While Veronica was in the shower, he attempted to unlock her phone. After a few failed attempts, he guessed the password, revealing intimate exchanges with someone labeled as LL. Their affair had begun during Veronica's new job, shattering Antonio's belief in their love and commitment. Stunned, Antonio sat on the bed as Veronica emerged from the shower, asking what was wrong. Veronica discovered the truth as soon as she saw her phone in Antonio's hands. How dare you breach my personal space? What made you search through my phone? She yelled angrily. How dare you cheat on me and then lie shamelessly? Antonio firmly shot back, saying he had no duty to her. I never made any promises to you. I never made a vow to be faithful, he said. Veronica persisted in her self-defense, charging Antonio with abandoning her during the years he devoted to establishing their joint existence. Antonio, distraught, knelt down to show Veronica how much he loved and cared for her. However, she didn't seem to care, blaming her fear of growing old and the passage of time for her desire to look for love elsewhere. Perplexed by her betrayal, Antonio reminded her, I already made you a proposal. It's the kind of proposal you can easily refuse, especially when there are other options on the horizon, Veronica replied sternly. Antonio made the decision to depart after realizing their relationship was irreversibly ruined. Recognizing that Veronica needed a place to stay, he extended an invitation for her to stay at the apartment, but there was only so much of her callousness that he could take. Antonio was saddened when Veronica casually remarked that she was going to be with someone else as she was getting ready to go. Antonio's heart broke when Veronica left with her possessions. Overcome with sorrow and apprehension about what lay ahead, he collapsed to the ground. When Veronica said goodbye to Antonio and expressed her hope for her own happiness, the way forward became obvious to her. The engagement ring, a quiet reminder of their dashed hopes, was left behind by her. Antonio watched in despair when his beloved Veronica climbed into a luxurious white car, assisted by a well-dressed man. Without a second thought, he flung the engagement ring out the window, proclaiming his disillusionment with love. A passing pedestrian heard his outburst and turned towards the house, but Antonio remained consumed by grief, unable to fathom the idea of finding someone else. Antonio wept bitterly, feeling as though he had lost his most cherished possession. He couldn't even entertain the notion of other women. So deeply was he in love with Veronica. Desperate for comfort, Antonio called his friend Dan, who arrived with alcohol to ease his pain. When they reminisced about Veronica, Dan assured him that he would find happiness again. Determined to move forward, Antonio resolved to focus on his career, finding solace in work's reliability. His dedication didn't go unnoticed, and Antonio was promoted ahead of schedule, leading to a significant increase in salary. With his newfound success, he furnished his apartment luxuriously, but he still couldn't shake thoughts of Veronica. During a housewarming party, Dan attempted to lift Antonio's spirits by suggesting a replacement for Veronica. However, Antonio refused to speak ill of her, despite the hurt she had caused him. Nevertheless, Dan persisted in his efforts to find Antonio a new love, determined to see his friend happy once more. Antonio decided to take Dan's advice and began meeting various women recommended by his friend, Vicky, Paulina, Natalia, Romana. Despite their physical allure, Antonio found something lacking in each encounter, a quality that couldn't be articulated but was essential for him. Love, he realized, defied explanation. Dan, who had never been in a long-term relationship, marveled at Antonio's journey. After a few months of casual flings, Antonio concluded that this lifestyle wasn't fulfilling. He refocused on his career and was rewarded with another promotion, affirming his talent. Years passed, and Antonio bought a spacious duplex, living a comfortable and vibrant life. He traveled, attended cultural events, and indulged in various interests. However, despite his outward success, his personal life remained unfulfilled. While he no longer longed for Veronica, knowing she had moved on, Antonio struggled to find emotional intimacy. Even with the help of Kate, his housekeeper, managing his household, he felt a void that material possessions couldn't fill. Dan, the perennial bachelor, shocked Antonio by announcing his impending marriage, which only made him feel more alone, joking with his friend about his abrupt change of heart. Antonio thought on how even the most resilient people may be taken by surprise by life's unexpected shifts. Dan teased Antonio about his prior affections for Veronica, but Antonio couldn't get rid of the yearning for a relationship similar to the one he once had. Dan embarrassed himself by telling Antonio that he had lately fallen in love. When exactly? Curiosity prompted Antonio to ask. Roughly half a year ago, Dan blushed in response. With a light-hearted smile, Antonio couldn't help but make fun of Dan for keeping it a secret for so long. Dan clarified that because he had never felt such strong emotions before, he hadn't thought it was serious until recently. Dan described a love that filled his thoughts, made him feel ecstatic with simply a kiss, and made other women invisible. When Antonio asked what it felt like, he acknowledged that at first he tried to continue living his typical lifestyle of having casual relationships, but he wasn't satisfied with it. Dan said, after considering his newfound knowledge of love. Turns out, I'm perfectly content with just one girl who can give me everything I need. Dan's explanation resonated with Antonio because he understood the intensity of his past feelings for Veronica. Congratulating his friend, he asked to see the fortunate woman ahead of the nuptials. Dan readily agreed, and Antonio thought he would meet a model who would be more conventionally beautiful than Vicky. But Antonio was shocked when Dan presented him to Nira. She was a typical girl, not very tall, a little overweight, with curls and freckles showing through her ponytail. Nira blushed shyly and clutched to Dan, who gave her a protecting embrace. Dan clarified that Nira had dropped a book by mistake when they first met in the metro. While she was engrossed in reading, Dan casually picked up the book for her, sparking a conversation that neither of them anticipated. Dan found himself inexplicably asking for her phone number, a move he couldn't quite comprehend. She, being an intellectual, wasn't the usual type he pursued, and Nira herself was baffled by how she gave her number to someone resembling the kind she used to disdain. Both approached their first date with the firm conviction that it would be their last. However, life's unpredictability intervened, and half a year later, Dan proposed to Nira, who accepted without hesitation. Their wedding, scheduled in just 2 months, was not extravagant but intimate and cozy, reflecting Nira's aversion to show and fuss, much to Dan's surprise. Most importantly, I love Nira, Dan replied, blushing and diverting the conversation. That evening, after bidding farewell to Kate, their exceptional cleaning lady, Antonio sat at his computer contemplating a wedding gift for the soon-to-be newlyweds. He settled on a trendy air humidifier, a choice reminiscent of one he once considered purchasing with Veronica. However, evidently, fate had other plans. Antonio, upon placing the order for the gift, shut down his computer and retired to bed. In recent years, his work had consumed him to the extent that the absence of a personal life didn't bother him much. However, news of his best friend's impending marriage reignited his contemplation of marriage. Antonio had always envisioned a large family and strived to shield his loved ones from hardship, but where could he find the right woman? Perhaps only by leaving it to chance. Like Dan's unexpected encounter, the hitch, though, was that Antonio hadn't used public transportation in ages. Time to take a ride on a bus, he jokingly urged himself before drifting off to sleep. During the night, he unexpectedly dreamt of a girl wielding a bow and arrow, her face obscured when she stood with her back to him. He called out to her, and she began to turn around, but Antonio woke up before he could see her face. In the dream, he had given this mysterious figure a name, but upon waking, he couldn't recall it. Descending to the kitchen from his second floor, abode, he drank some water. Strangely, this dream had unsettled him, his heart racing. While dreaming of girls wasn't uncommon for him, it was specifically this enigmatic guest from tonight's dream who disturbed his peace. Standing by the panoramic window, he whispered, "We walk the same streets, and we will definitely meet," the words acting as a mantra before he drifted back to sleep. He awoke in the morning with a profound conviction that he would soon encounter the love of his life, rendering his feelings for Veronica mere child's play. However, for the remainder of the week, he found himself besieged by work obligations, meetings, discussions, emails to sift through, tasks to solve, and proposals to screen. Amidst this flurry, one email caught his attention. A local university was seeking representatives from his company to serve on the jury of the technical faculty competition. "I hope there will be plenty of bikinis," quipped Antonio's colleague, Vidal, during a meeting. "Of course not," protested Alicia from the neighboring department. "I studied at this university and participated in such competitions. It's more like a talent show with an intellectual component. The girls demonstrate their professional skills and talents in various areas. It's all very dignified," Vidal joked, "and there won't be any tango panties." "Imagine," Alicia retorted. "What's the point in going then? We should appreciate that girls are given the opportunity to express themselves and showcase their potential." Alicia insisted, "All we have to do is choose a juror to represent our company." "Antonio, perhaps it ought to be you," Antonio answered. "You'll be surprised, but I'm not against it." "Whoa, that was unexpected. You normally can't be forced to leave the office, but right now you're not resisting," Vidal teasingly said. "Besides, if there won't be any bikini-clad girls." Antonio came at the institution where he had graduated 10 years prior on the special day, but he didn't feel homesickness walking down the well-known corridors. His heart continued to beat steadily until a girl resembling the one from his dream appeared in the distance, wearing a ribbon on her back. Antonio was dumbfounded, wanting to yell at the stranger but not being able to remember her name. In the meanwhile, the girl vanished around a bend. "Perhaps I was just dreaming," Antonio said inaudibly. "What? How did you say that?" He was questioned by the cleaner who had a pail of water. "Oh, nothing noteworthy. Could you tell me the location of the auditorium?" Antonio answered, blushing. The woman directed him appropriately. "You also need to clean your feet." "I have to clean it up after all these folks wander around trampling around here," she said grudgingly. Antonio apologized, looking more than a little uncomfortable. "Has the potential to become a billionaire or a millionaire, radically transform your life." When he left, she made a cryptic comment. However, amidst the grumbling of the displeased cleaner, Antonio found a moment of amusement that distracted him from thoughts of the beautiful stranger. He reached the auditorium and took a seat at a table where other jury members, representatives of various technical companies, were already assembled. The hall buzzed with noise as students prepared to support their friends, many holding signs bearing their names. Antonio felt a bit nervous, a feeling he hadn't anticipated amidst his work routine. He had truly forgotten about entertainment events, but today he was here not for enjoyment, but to judge the competition fairly and impartially. When the noise in the hall subsided, the host appeared on stage. "I'm pleased to announce that the Miss Technical Faculty competition is now open. Today, 10 charming contestants will vie for the title, each presenting themselves in a unique way to showcase their talent," the host announced into the microphone. One by one, the girls began to appear on stage. One was dressed as a belly dancer, presumably planning to perform an Eastern dance. Another came out in a kimono, likely to demonstrate martial arts techniques. The third carried an easel, planning to paint a picture. Each contestant was unique and earned Antonio's respect. That being said, Antonio's heart skipped a beat when the final competitor was revealed. And finally, let's welcome contestant number 10, Dalia Cabo, a second-year master's student, an outstanding student who is passionate about archery, said the host. Behind the curtains materialized the girl Antonio had dreamed about, a little, athletic brunette with eagle-like eyes and a bow on her back. Antonio muttered to himself, "So, this is how your face looks, and your name is Dahlia." "What? I apologize," a second juror inquired. "Not a thing," Antonio gave a prompt, "I just admire the contestants'" response. His co-worker answered, "I understand," and began to cheer. Antonio was not enthralled by dancing, singing, or painting when the contenders started to display their skills. He was waiting for the desired archer to get onto the platform. At last the girl appeared, her motions as quick as Diana, the hunting goddess. On the opposite side of the hallway, a target was put up. Daria bowed to the crowd and met Antonio's gaze for a brief instant before her first shot. That moment was enough to make his heart skip a beat. Finally, Daria began her archery session, each arrow finding its mark on the bullseye with pinpoint accuracy. The host, impressed by her flawless performance, lauded her brilliance, marking her with a perfect score of 10. Among the contestants, only one other, a singer, managed to match her feat. As the competition progressed, Daria's intellect shone in the academic segment, where she effortlessly answered questions from professors in her field, propelling herself into the lead. In the final stage, a philosophical challenge awaited, with questions ranging from future career aspirations to the ideal concept of family. When the spotlight turned to Daria, Antonio Sherari, the CEO of Avon Company, posed his question. Visibly nervous yet determined, he inquired about Daria's ultimate life dream. Without hesitation, Daria seized the microphone, radiating confidence when she expressed her desire to make the world a better place through innovation. She emphasized the importance of their profession in driving progress and outlined her vision for transformative ideas to enhance quality of life. With conviction, she concluded, expressing her belief in collective effort to reach new heights. Antonio, deeply moved by her response, quietly thanked her, marveling at her resolve. It seems like that was a declaration of victory, the excited host exclaimed. But let's not rush things. The jury needs to score the final competition and announce the results. In the meantime, let's enjoy some music. However, the host's words proved prophetic. Daria indeed emerged as the competition's winner, securing a significant lead over the other contestants. All the jury members gathered on stage for the award ceremony. As a key partner of the competition, Antonio's company entrusted him with presenting the main prize, a certificate worth $11,000. Despite his trembling hands and racing pulse, Antonio attempted to reassure himself, reminding that he wasn't a 15-year-old boy anymore. Locking eyes with Daria as he handed her the certificate, Antonio felt a jolt as if lightning had struck him. When their hands met, he experienced a genuine spark, so intense that he awkwardly pulled away. However, Daria's smile remained unperturbed. This happens, it's physics, she explained confidently, her handshake firm as steel. Observing Antonio's reaction, his former academic advisor, Senor San Pedro, approached him. It's great to see you, Antonio, he greeted warmly. I always knew you had a bright future. As they conversed, Senor San Pedro couldn't help but remark on Daria's impressive qualities, noting her intelligence, beauty, and regal demeanor. Despite already being captivated by Daria long before, Antonio found himself further intrigued by her. Their encounter during the competition felt like an unexpected revelation, stirring emotions and sparking curiosity about what the future might hold. Nevertheless, Antonio was clueless about how to approach the aloof archer and gain her acceptance. He was out of touch after years of isolation, and making casual contacts wasn't always this difficult for him. This was unfamiliar territory. Luckily, Destiny had other ideas when Daria came up to him in the university hallway. Good night, Antonio. Sadly, I'm not familiar with your last name, Daria said to him, breaking the ice. Although my name is Shivari, you can call me Antonio. Daria, good evening. Once again, congratulations on your win, Antonio said, still unable to contain his amazement at his good fortune. Yes, I appreciate that. You've commended me already. I'd like to talk about something else right now. Are you the CEO of Avon? I'm right. Daria didn't even try to flirt. She asked in the most serious way possible. Yes, that's absolutely correct, Antonio said in a tone that was diplomatic. Very good. Could you please let me know if interning at your company is possible and what the requirements would be? Which documents ought I to bring? Just so you know, I have credentials for winning all countries' student competitions and a certificate of English competence. I also have a wide and detailed portfolio. Daria persisted in her questioning. Senor San Pedro walked by in the hallway at that very moment. Dear, you ought to take the bow off. You appear a little too fierce, said the senior lecturer. Well, obviously, Senor San Pedro. Thank you, Daria stammered, blushing and grinning, her response endearingly childlike in contrast to her serious demeanor just seconds before. Antonio experienced a wave of emotion at that same moment. His heart, broken by previous heartbreak, slowly started to heal and rise again. He gave a short, uncontrollably amused smile, then snapped back to the topic at Is there a way to intern? It is, of course, within our borders. We always welcome bright young professionals. I'll leave you my details for communication. When Antonio saw Daria's joy build and thought she was even more attractive and appealing, he remarked, "Be sure to get in touch with me, leave your portfolio and phone number. I'm grateful, Senor Shivari. You won't be let down by me. I'll see you," with a smile. Daria ran out to join her pals. "Until we cross paths again," Antonio grinned and watched her leave. Then he walked toward the door, slowly and with a hint of dancing in his step. "I have to clean up after you because you have been wandering about," the janitor, who was annoyed, complained when he went past. "Spit on you, feeling like a teenager." Antonio was overjoyed to return home and even stopped to buy flowers for Kate. "Why is that, Antonio?" the housekeeper asked in surprise. "Just because," Antonio replied cheerfully. "I hope she's a good girl." Instantly understanding, Kate inquired. "She's wonderful, absolutely," Antonio answered without hesitation, explaining that he met her at the university competition. He kept checking his work email the following day, expecting to find a message from Daria. He had to wait barely a moment. She sent him an email before midday with her phone number, her portfolio, her certificates, and a letter of recommendation from Senor Pedro. Antonio sopped his throat and waited for everyone to leave the office before calling her. "Hi, Daria, from Avon. This is Antonio Shivari." Trying not to show off his delight, he said, "I received your resume and read it." "Greetings, Senor Shivari. That's good to hear," Daria said, expressing her delight without holding back. "And what is your verdict?" "I'm impressed by your resume. You're still young, yet you've accomplished a lot already. You certainly have a lot more in front of you. Therefore, you are welcome to apply for an internship with us. The remuneration will be low at first, but if you do well, it will grow over time, and you'll get hired on as a full-time employee." Antonio clarified, "I'm grateful. Even if it had been free, I would have accepted your offer to intern. It's such a privilege and a worthwhile experience," Daria exclaimed. Antonio said, "Oh no, pay for work should be provided over the phone." Daria said, "Thank you again, Senor Shivari," with a smile on her face. "Thank you so much," the programmer emphasized. "You can start tomorrow. And let's just stick with calling me Antonio, okay?" "Yes, well, Antonio, we have a deal," Daria said, appearing a little bashful. After hanging up, Antonio grinned. His coworker came into the office at that same moment. He joked, "Who has those cat-like eyes?" GL, did the visit to the student competition pay off? Even though they weren't in bikinis, an embarrassed Antonio chastised him, saying, "Don't talk nonsense. You should go set up the workstation outside. Tomorrow, our intern will be arriving." With a smile, his colleague asked, "Intern or internet?" "But it's all right. I need to get back to work," Tonio interjected, his mind already bustling with plans. Later that evening, he exuded jubilance when he visited the barber for a trim, purchased a crisp new shirt, and dabbed on a fragrance he deemed perfect for Daria. "Don't fret too much, Antonio," Kate consoled him later that night. "If she's as you described, she won't be swayed by such superficialities. Your intellect and strong character will win her over. Trust me, just be yourself, and everything will fall into place." Antonio found solace in her words, drifting into a peaceful sleep. The following day, Antonio spotted Daria standing outside the office building. Tempted to approach her and suggest they enter together, he restrained himself, mindful of their still budding acquaintance and the hierarchical dynamics at play. Instead, he observed her from afar for a moment. Daria, clad in a softly hued business suit with feminine touches, fidgeted nervously at the entrance. Adjusting her attire, Antonio, seizing the moment, abandoned formality and approached her. "Daria, is that you? I'm delighted to see you. How did you arrive?" he greeted warmly. "Allow me to escort you to the correct office. It's en route." "Oh, Senor Shirari, I'm equally glad to see you," Daria responded, a blend of embarrassment and joy coloring her tone. "I managed to get here smoothly, no traffic jams. Thankfully, my workplace is nearby." "Is it the one on 8th Street by any chance?" she inquired. "Yes, that's the one. How did you know?" Antonio replied, a hint of nostalgia creeping into his voice. "I used to reside there myself. Once upon a time, we're compatriots," he explained. "No way." Daria blushed. "You see, we already have something in common," Antonio remarked, realizing his last comment was unnecessary. "Well, we're almost there. This is our open workspace, and this is Vidal." He'll show you to your desk, make yourself comfortable, and I'll check in on you closer to lunchtime, retreating to his office. Antonio found himself unable to concentrate on his tasks. Through the blinds, he kept a watchful eye on Daria, observing her diligent posture, meticulous organization of her desk, and attentive participation in work discussions. Unbeknownst to him, the CEO entered his office. Not a bad choice, the colleague remarked. She seems to fit your style well. Beauty isn't everything, but she's quite adorable, and she seems intelligent. She's a good fit for you. I approve, Antonio's friend Vidal teased, prompting Antonio to scold him. What? You've been watching her just as closely. Through the blinds, Vidal retorted with a smirk before leaving the boss's office. As promised, when lunchtime approached, Antonio ventured into the open workspace and immediately noticed how well Daria had adapted. She seemed to have already established a rapport with Alicia, who was guiding her through the intricacies of the job and corporate etiquette. The atmosphere was professional but relaxed. Seems like everything is going smoothly. Antonio remarked, Sure, everything is going really well. We're getting along well, Alicia retorted with joy. Incidentally, I was the previous Miss Faculty Champion. Did I not bring that up? No, you didn't. That's impressive, Daria said with sincerity when she commended her. Daria demonstrated her diligence, punctuality, and attention to detail throughout her job. Everyone, including Antonio, was satisfied with her performance since she paid attention to her mentors and completed her assignments with skill. But Antonio was unsure about how to go about approaching Daria, who seemed unapproachable. Thankfully, Vidal saved the day. Hey guys, it's Friday today, right? An excellent excuse for us to get out to a pub or whatever after work. How do you feel? Vidal made a proposal that excited everyone in the office. Wonderful concept. For 12 individuals, I'll reserve a few tables, Vidal said in closing. Regarding 13, Antonio corrected him, saying, I'm joining you guys. You will not be recognized. Senior Shirari, usually, you finish work early and avoid going out to bars with us. What has become of you? Sincere doubts were expressed by Alicia. I've made the decision to get my work-life balance back. I mean, I'm a human too, after all, Antonio clarified, seeming a little miffed. Vidal joked, You're not just human, you're a champ, which caused their co-workers to laugh. They made the decision to go to the Tipsy Frog after work after deciding on a plan. Antonio considered it as a chance to get closer to Daria, even though he didn't particularly appreciate such boisterous events. The place was busy, packed, and had low lighting, which was ideal for his stealthy attempts to get her attention without drawing attention from his co-workers. Daria was quiet and reserved at first, but as the evening went on, she began to open up. She shared some of her own jokes with everyone else and laughed with them at Vitals. Antonio watched her intently, thinking she was getting more gorgeous by the second. He'd ordered a non-alcoholic beer on purpose so he could stay sober and enjoy the moment, but her presence had made him feel drunk. Later in the evening, when most employees indulged in formed groups based on their interests, Antonio noticed Daria chatting with Vidal. Sensing Antonio's gaze, Vidal knowingly winked at him, feigned an urgent phone call, and left. Seizing the opportunity, Antonio took his place beside Daria. How are you finding it here? Antonio asked, his mind clear despite the festive atmosphere. I mean, working at the company. It's good, I like it, Daria replied, slightly stumbling over her words. I'm glad, Antonio responded warmly. Tell me about yourself. What are your interests, and what's your family like? I only have my mom, Daria began, her voice softening. She works as a doctor in a small town. My dad left us when I was 5, so I barely remember him. We lived modestly but proudly. My mom taught me the value of hard work, so I knew I had to achieve everything in life through my own efforts and intelligence. In high school, I got into programming and found out I was good at it. I aced my exams and got into a university in the capital. Now, thanks to this job, I'm starting to build my career. I want to earn well and buy a bigger apartment for my mom, since she's living in a small one. That's the plan, she concluded, a hint of determination in her voice. Antonio nodded understandingly, realizing they had even more in common than he had initially thought. He shared similar concerns about his own mother and had already bought her a larger apartment. However, he decided not to bring it up with Daria for now. Perhaps later. What about your hobbies? Antonio inquired, changing the subject. Do you have any? I enjoy archery, Daria replied, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. I got interested in it as a child, and I still practice it to this day. Many people think it's not a lady's hobby, but I find it incredibly fulfilling. I don't see it that way either. It's just an unusual and very interesting hobby, Daria explained, her voice firm. Exactly. What about you? What are your hobbies, if you don't mind me asking? Antonio inquired, noticing her blush but pressing on gently. In our company, we follow a democratic management style, so feel free to share. Daria hesitated for a moment before responding. Of course, you can ask. Well, overall, I go to the gym, attend theaters, visit art exhibitions, and I try to travel whenever I can. Antonio smiled, acknowledging her interests. Your life seems very fulfilling and exciting, Daria remarked, admiringly. Yes, Antonio replied, his tone tinged with a hint of sadness, though unnoticed by Daria. But sometimes, fulfilling lives can feel incomplete without the presence of a loved one. Their conversation flowed smoothly when they reminisced about their hometowns in the Urals, discussed university professors, debated work-related topics, and even delved into discussions about the ideal breed of dog. They both realized they had a lot in common. Summoning his courage, Antonio voiced a surprising proposal. You know, my best friend is getting married in a week, and I really don't want to attend the wedding alone. I don't have a girlfriend or a wife, so how do you feel about accompanying me? I promise I won't make any advances. Everything will be in good taste, I swear. Daria was taken aback and couldn't respond immediately. If it's not acceptable to you, you don't have to agree. I understand, Antonio said, mentally scolding himself for his impulsive suggestion. No, I'm flattered. I'd be happy to accompany you. It would be an honor for me, Daria replied with a smile. Great, that's wonderful. We'll discuss all the details in our messages next week. Okay, for now, let's go back to our colleagues. They've been giving us sideways glances already, Antonio said, moving closer to Vidal. So, lovebirds, have you chatted enough? Vidal asked, teasingly. Yes, Antonio replied without hesitation. The evening had definitely gone well for him. The following week, preparations for Daniel and Nura's wedding began. The couple announced that there would be a dress code for the ceremony, with guests expected to wear shades of wine. Oh, I apologize, I'm not in a position to buy anything right now, and I don't have any clothes in those colors. Payday is still 2 weeks away, Daria said while they were having lunch. That is in no way problematic. We'll go to the store right after work today and choose an outfit in the proper color for you, Antonio said. But is that really appropriate? We're not really that close. Daria expressed surprise. Yes, you're right, Antonio quickly corrected her, but let me handle everything. I was the one who started the whole wedding concept. You can buy your dress from me, and that's it. Nothing more is what I'm requesting. With a firm no, thanks, Daria said. I will attend without a doubt, as I committed to going. Regarding the dress, I'll take out a loan from you and reimburse you as soon as I get paid. All right, Antonio grudgingly said. Okay, understanding that he had no other choice but to persuade Daria. They made their way to the store that same evening. Daria tried on several different clothes, and she looked amazing in each one. Antonio was prepared to buy her everything when he watched her with admiration, but Daria ultimately chose a wine-colored pantsuit. She told the clerk, I'll give you back everything in 2 weeks. He gave a mute nod, thinking that in 2 weeks they would be a married couple and Daria would get so many more presents from Antonio that she wouldn't remember to return the pantsuit, and that's exactly how it happened. Antonio drove Daria back to the dorm after they left the store. Daria was a little shy at first, but she soon warmed up to it. They spoke with great ease and humor, as though they had known each other for a long time. All right, we're here, now I have to go, Daria remarked. However, Antonio grasped her hand, drew her in, and planted a kiss on her. The girl gave no resistance. After the kiss, Antonio said, grinning, so it turns out we're going to my friend's wedding as a couple after all. Feeling a little embarrassed, Daria answered. If you're suggesting that we date and it doesn't contradict the rules of the company where we work, then yes, it seems so. It doesn't go against the rules, Antonio declared with assurance. The most important thing is to not misuse our authority. However, you're so gifted and diligent that nobody will ever mistake you for my apprentice. Whatever you say, Daria answered, giving him Another kiss. Well, I have to go now. The pair made the decision to maintain their relationship a secret and not bring it up at work in the interim. Why rush things when everyone will find out sooner or later? Daniel and Nura's wedding was on Saturday, and the weekend was drawing near. Antonio picked up Daria in the morning. She looked lovely in her wine-colored attire and had her hair down. Antonio praised her appearance and gave her a hand kiss. "You look amazing," he said, after blushing. Daria remained silent. She wasn't really bothered by the other sex's lack of interest because she was a student in a faculty that was predominantly male. She was 24, though, and had never been in a committed relationship. She had dated Nico, a fellow student, for a few months and knew he was deeply in love with her, but all she could do was sympathize. Their romance was short-lived because it was stagnant. Nico, though, continued to yearn for his past love, but things were different with Antonio. Daria knew it instantly, from the strange warmth that enveloped her body to the way she and her chosen one gazed at each other and how much they looked forward to their encounters. Without a doubt, it was the kind of love she had only ever read about in novels and seen in movies. Holding hands, Daria and Antonio made their way into the banquet hall. Daniel was shocked to see a girl with his pal. "What the heck do I see, bro? What does this mean? You and this gorgeous stranger?" The bridegroom greeted his friend with gladness. "However, I arrived with company because you issued me an invitation in a +1 style. I hope it's okay with you." Antonio answered, "Obviously not. What topic are you discussing? I simply had no idea that you were dating. I assumed you were still harboring feelings for Veronica." Daniel muttered, making sure Nura was not hearing. "All of it is behind us. I've moved on. I'm starting a new chapter in my life now. Ideally, a more joyful one. Allow me to present you this is my girlfriend Daria," Antonio said to the newlyweds, introducing her to him. "Nice to meet you," Nura said with a smile as she adjusted her veil. "I can already tell that we'll become good friends." "Sweetie," Daniel remarked, "if you think so, I have no doubt about my friend's choice," adding, gesturing to his new bride, "She has excellent intuition. But still, why didn't you tell us about your new love earlier?" Daniel asked. "Because our partnership is just getting started. There's plenty of time, so don't rush," Antonio answered. Daniel winked at his pal and said, well, you'll outdo me and propose to Daria before I do to Nura. Anything can happen." Antonio smiled in response. Only a few close friends and family attended the happy and heartfelt wedding, but it didn't detract from the atmosphere in general. Daria eagerly joined in the activities and danced briskly with Antonio. Her selected one was ecstatic. Daniel remarked, "I haven't seen you like this in a long time. After a break, hold on to this girl, she makes you happy." Antonio was aware of this. He was finding Daria to be a kindred spirit, and their friendship was growing quickly. The dream concerning the archer proved to be prescient. A man who had long since closed his heart to women had now fully opened up to his new chosen one. "I am full of delights and passions right here." Antonio told Daria everything about his relationship with Veronica and her betrayal. "I'm not hiding anything from you, ready to share everything, to speak honestly about everything," Antonio said. "At the time, I was unable to provide her with the lovely, luxurious life she desired, but you know, she should have waited. Most of the stuff I own now, including vehicles, homes, and other items." With tears in his eyes, he said to Daria, "I did it to prove to her and myself that I could achieve a lot, even more than other men. You understand?" "I know, sweetie, but please, settle down for the moment. I'm right here, you're at home, and we're secure." Daria caressed Antonio's head tenderly and remarked, "I promise you, everything will be fine. All the betrayals are behind us." It was as though he was back when he was a little boy, crying and whining about some silly problems, and her maternal touch, her straightforward but crucial words, truly calmed him down. Just as Daria's words were healing all the scars, it was evident at work right away that the boss and the intern were having an affair. Though the two lovebirds didn't reveal their identities through words or gestures, it was evident from their glances that they were in a passionate relationship. But even the caustic Vidal decided not to poke fun at them since their emotions were so real. Furthermore, Daria was quickly promoted from intern to full-time employee without Antonio's assistance. This made her very happy, and Antonio felt the same way. He wanted to be even more intimate with her, so he proposed that they move in together, but to his surprise, Daria said no. "Without a doubt," she said, "I would like to stay in the dormitory." For the time being, I'm sure we have many happy years ahead of us, but trust me, for both you and me, it's better this way." Although this surprised Antonio, he chose not to give it too much thought. His thoughts were consumed by the upcoming wedding. Daniel was correct. He was more than ready to propose to his new girlfriend, just 3 months after they had met, and that thrilling moment arrived. Antonio purchased a lavish bouquet of roses and suggested to Daria that they take a ride on the Ferris wheel. There, he presented her with the flowers and a ring distinct from the one he had given Veronica. Overwhelmed with joy, Daria burst into tears and embraced her fiancé. "Of course, I agree, my love, I'm so happy," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "And I am too, let's get married as soon as possible." Antonio replied, "Of course, but only after I finish university." "Okay, it's only a few more months," Daria replied, clinging tightly to her groom. "Okay," Antonio obediently responded, though not without a tinge of reluctance. They agreed to postpone the wedding preparations. Daria explained that it was crucial for her to focus on writing and defending her diploma, understanding the importance of her education to her. Antonio accepted these conditions. As Daria spent more time at the university and in the dormitory, they began to see each other less frequently. The situation started to resemble what had happened with Veronica. "How can you even compare this situation?" Daria protested. "I promised you that I would never betray you, and I know how to keep my word." Antonio silently nodded but decided to seek advice from Daniel. "I'm really bothered by her constant absence and the fact that she asked to postpone the wedding. It's all just so suspicious and worrisome to me. What do you think? Am I paranoid, or do I have a reason to be concerned?" Antonio asked his friend. "Bro, something about this whole situation doesn't sit right with me either. When I proposed to Nura, she immediately agreed and started Googling available dates at the registry office. She didn't want to delay anything." Daria, of course, seems completely different from Veronica at first glance, serious and business-oriented, but who knows what these women are like on the inside. When they say, "The devil is in the details," Daniel shared his thoughts. "What should I do?" Antonio asked. "Stick to the classics, check her messages," his friend advised. Antonio understood that his friend was right. However, it was exceedingly unpleasant for Antonio to go through Daria's phone without her knowledge, especially considering how such an action had ended with Veronica, but he felt like he had no choice this time. Antonio knew Daria's phone password. She didn't even try to hide it. It was a formula related to the kinetic energy of the body, reflecting Daria's scientific interests. When Daria came to visit him and started preparing dinner, Antonio discreetly remained in the bedroom and accessed her phone. With trembling hands, he checked all her conversations in one messenger app. Everything seemed fine, just some casual chatting with her friends, work-related chats, and study-related messages from classmates and professors. Antonio checked another messenger app, with the same result. A third one also appeared clean. He sighed with relief, but the unease still lingered. The two of them met again after that. "Her phone shows that everything is clear, but I still feel uneasy. I didn't used to feel jealousy. But after what happened to Veronica, it seems like a dragon inside of me that I can't get rid of." Daria lives in the dorm among a lot of boys and attends school in a department that is predominantly male. "I just can't stop worrying." Antonio expressed his worries. "Indeed, what a bunch of losers they all are. When compared to your money, what can they offer her?" Daniel remarked. "It would take a fool to swap someone like you for guys like them, and Daria is obviously not a fool." "Maybe you're right, but I still can't help feeling insanely jealous, and I can't control it," Antonio said. "If so, there's only one thing I can think of to do: put in a covert camera in her dorm room to find out what's actually going on." Daniel said. "If she's playing some kind of double game, you won't have to waste any more time trying to figure it out." "Yes, maybe you're correct. I'll take care of that," Antonio said. It made him uneasy to question his beloved's actions in this way, but as they say, one bite, two shies. In her room, installing a camera wasn't too hard. Daria was astonished when Antonio once wanted to see her at her dorm, but she granted him permission. At that moment, her roommate was someplace else, attending a party. Antonio unexpectedly set up the devices for additional security when he was left alone in the room. Rather than bringing one camera, he brought two and hung them up in different areas of the space. The devices were so tiny that it was nearly hard to notice them. Antonio was sitting on the bed, waiting for Daria to return to the room with a tiny pot of soup she had made. The die was cast, but the game was hard. No matter what, he had to know the truth. It was just a matter of waiting. Daniel suggested that Antonio listen to the tapes later for a more complete view, rather than right away. The years dragged agonizingly slowly by, and Antonio kept acting like their relationship was going along just fine, but Daria felt that something was wrong. Are you all right? Darling, you seem a little preoccupied and aloof these days, she inquired to her beau. No, sweetheart, nothing is wrong, Antonio retorted, it's just your imagination. Well knew that he would be watching the security camera footage later that night. Now was the critical moment. Daniel was invited by Antonio to feel more at ease. Go ahead, I'm prepared for anything, a shaky Antonio murmured. His companion said, whatever you say, bro, and hit the start button. Fast forwarding started when the recording started. Nothing noteworthy was captured on camera, just Daria working at her desk, cleaning a little, eating lunch, and conversing with her roommate. Dude, this is boring. It appears to be a false alarm, yawned Daniel. Antonio said, wait a minute. When he saw some individuals moving into the frame, the buddies leaned in nearer to the television. Daniel concluded, well, this is getting interesting. The soldiers were ready for anything, but they were not expecting to see Daria and her classmates going through stacks of books, sitting in front of laptops, sketching, and having furious discussions. Daniel flicked through the footage. It transpired that these get-togethers had been occurring in Daria's room on a regular basis for some time. Well, I don't even know what to say, bro. It doesn't seem like jealousy makes sense. It seems that your fiancé is putting on some sort of conference for intellectuals. Good luck figuring it out, Daniel advised his pal before rushing to his newlywed wife. With no idea what to do, Antonio stayed seated. Although there was no evidence of adultery caught on camera, there were still a lot of unsolved concerns from these thought-provoking meetings in the dorm. His curiosity was getting the better of him, but he was afraid to ask his sweetie directly what was going on for fear that it might betray the camera's presence. In the evening, as is often the case, the answer presented itself. Daria went straight from work into Antonio's office. She said, icily, may I have a few minutes, Senor Shivari? Yes, without a doubt. Shut the door and enter. We can still use our first names at work, as we have long since agreed. After all, we're not strangers to one another, Antonio remarked. Are you serious? Daria said, I'm not so sure about that anymore, and slammed the door behind her. What do you mean? With alarm, Antonio inquired. Daria flung two tiny cameras onto Antonio's desk and said, here's what. And don't even consider lying that you're not involved in this. How do you explain this? Antonio looked startled and added, I'll explain everything now, my dear. Before going on to talk to her about his fears, worries, and anxieties, he gave an explanation for the camera installation as well. Daria folded her arms and listened intently. The fact that your ex-girlfriend cheated on you doesn't give you the right to distrust your new girlfriend and spy on her, she said with conviction. Dalia chastised him, calling his actions demeaning and degrading. I get it, sweetie, Antonio begged. I'm really embarrassed of how this turned out. Did you discover what you were trying to find? I take it that you expected to witness orgies in my room. Dalia kept letting out her annoyance. No. What do you mean? If I witnessed anything similar, I would be utterly devastated. You have my trust, Antonio reassured her. However, I'm not sure what hit me. Still, what's going on in your space? A scientific meeting of some sort? He asked warily. Despite your extensive technological background, you are behaving foolishly. Yes, in a sense you might refer to our meetings as symposiums. Do you recall when I declared my desire to use innovations to transform the world at the Miss Faculty pageant? Of course, I'll do it with others who share my views. Thus, it wasn't just platitudes. It's true that my students and I are using cutting-edge software without a counterpart. I didn't want to rush into the wedding or move in with you because of this. I knew this was an endeavor you wouldn't approve of. You would like to put me in a golden cage, take care of everything, and give me a job that is only formal. But I haven't started a family yet, and I am genuinely gifted. My goal is to become aware of who I am and what I do. My classmates and I share a dorm, so it's easier for us to come together and collaborate. Have I piqued your interest? Then, Dalia screamed out of rage. Yes, sweetheart. I apologize for installing those stupid cameras and for not asking directly. I never questioned your ability. I never meant to put you in A cage of my own making. Furthermore, if your advancements are that significant to you, Antonio attempted self-defense. Excuse me, your lofty remarks, you have lost my faith. Dahlia shook her head, don't call me, and walked out the door. Antonio wanted someone to talk to, so he called Daniel. Well, what can I say, buddy? I haven't had many experiences with complex women by fate. You'll have to handle this on your own since you selected her. Daniel responded, I think you should just wait a little while. She'll probably cool off and you'll make up once more. Antonio made the decision to heed his friend's counsel. He made the decision to give Dahlia some time alone so she could move about and breathe. Besides, he was heading to another city for a business trip. He found it difficult to be apart from his sweetheart, but he made up his mind to stick with the break. A week later, he went back to the office and found Dahlia nowhere to be found. He worriedly questioned Vidal, is she sick? His surprised coworker answered, no, she quit. I assumed you were aware. I take it that you two are still together, or not at all. Yes, we still hang around. Naturally, we're still together. A trembling Antonio stumbled and hurriedly reached for his coat. I'm on my way to a crucial meeting. I have no idea when I'll return. He ordered someone to cover for him when he hurried out of the office. As you please, boss. Vidal said in a confused tone, beware of a silent dog in still water. He continued, that's what they say, right? Take part in beauty pageants alongside your students. Just go for the normal ones in bikinis. After all of this, ignoring his colleague's sage advice, Antonio jumped into his car and hit the gas. He knew where to find Dahlia at the entrance to the university. The same janitor greeted him, muttering something about dirty shoes again, but this time, Antonio completely ignored her. He was in a hurry to get to his former academic advisor's office, where his beloved was defending her diploma. Boldly opening the door to the familiar lecture hall, Antonio was met with Dahlia's frosty tone. Please leave, senor, you are disrupting the educational process, she said. Why are you so strict, darling? Senor Sherari is no stranger to our field. He has every right to be here. Come in, my friend. Dahlia and I can't seem to settle a scientific dispute, so you can arbitrate for us, Senor San Pedro said. Gesturing for his former student to enter, timidly crossing the threshold, Antonio noticed that Dahlia didn't even look in his direction. So, what's the essence of your dispute? Senor San Pedro asked. The thing is, dear Senor Sherari, our dispute goes beyond the realms of physics or mathematics. It's more related to philosophy, ethics, and morality. Dahlia insists that someone who has once made a mistake isn't entitled to forgiveness, even from someone who loves them wholeheartedly. I, on the other hand, judge from the perspective of live gears and dare to say that everyone deserves a second chance. Forgiveness is the greatest gift, thanks to which humanity still exists. What do you think about this? Senor San Pedro asked with a sly smile. Dahlia is undoubtedly talented. I'm sure she used to be right in hundreds of arguments before, but today, Professor, I would like to take your side. Perfection can only exist in gases, and even then, only in physics textbooks, Antonio replied, gaining confidence. Finally looking up, Dahlia met her fiancé's gaze for the first time. It was evident that her heart was beginning to thaw. Well, you are both unique individuals from different generations. It's been a pleasure talking to you, but I have other students waiting for me. I'll go in search of new gems in science, and I'll leave you to settle your philosophical dispute once and for all, the professor said, silently leaving the room. Approaching his beloved from behind, Antonio silently embraced her. He was prepared for anything for Dahlia to push him away, to break free, to start arguing, shouting, leaving, and slamming the door, but she stood still and didn't push him away. In complete silence, they stood there for a couple of minutes. Afterward, the girl turned to her fiancé, took his hand, and said, I already told you once that I love you and won't betray you. Why didn't you believe me? I don't know, my dear, I don't know. I promise I won't doubt your feelings or your faithfulness again. Let's forget everything. You can continue with your scientific developments as much as you want, and you can go back to work. All right, Antonio asked hopefully. I'm going to keep researching. I consider it to be vital. In terms of employment, I've already sent my resume to another business, and they're prepared to provide an offer to me for a senior role. They're intrigued by my advances as well. I'm prepared to move in with you right now if you don't mind sharing your home with a determined professional that loves what she does. If not, let's part ways with grace and walk in separate directions. You get to make the ultimate decision. Dahlia declared firmly. Naturally, I accept your terms in the same way that I accept the courageous, astute, and independent you. I swear to support you in anything and to not infringe upon your freedom, and I will be overjoyed if you go on to have a more brilliant career than mine in the near future. Now, what say you? Should we return home? Antonio smiled and held out his hand to Dahlia. Señor San Pedro was in the hallway when they made their way toward the exit after the girl extended her hand in return. Glancing at the young pair, he murmured, "That's excellent." With a knowing smile, Antonio gave a grateful nod. Once they were outside, Dahlia abruptly said, "But I have one more condition." "What's that?" Antonio inquired, a little nervously. "All right, no colored clothing codes at the wedding. It's just a ridiculous custom." "Oh, that's not at all problematic. Permit the visitors to enter in any manner they like, including nude. We won't put any limitations in place," Antonio retorted with joy. In return, Dahlia laughed a lot, and they drove home content, gorgeous, and utterly in love. Above is today's story. If you like it, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. See you next time.